Hi everyone, Ashley here and welcome to another video on the Penguin Palace Stamps YouTube channel. Today I am highlighting the use of one of the beautiful new stencils from Penguin Palace Stamps' latest release. This is part of their new Stencils 360 system, and this stencil is called the Floral Wreath Stencil. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to show you how I use the Stencils 360 system to make this beautiful multicolored pattern today. So first, I'm using the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch paper positioner, and I just lined that up so that the little yellow arrow is pointing right to the top, and that's how you know your paper will be straight. Next, I'm taking a white piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 cardstock, and I'm just slotting it right into the opening of that paper positioner. And it's hard to see on camera, but there is an opening in that clear plastic, and you can just slot your paper right in and it fits right into that opening, and then you can take the paper positioner out and your paper is perfectly positioned to be centered on the stencil. Next, I'm adding the guide ring, and again, this slots right into the Stencils 360 base, and you line it up by putting that arrow right at the top, and then all of the lines will line up with the base. Next, you can tape in that guide ring using a little bit of masking tape and just focusing it on those areas where there is some cross hatching, and that just indicates that those places can be taped and it won't really interfere with your pattern. And by the way, the whole Stencils 360 base is taped down to my work surface, again using a little bit of masking tape. So now that that guide ring is in place, I can place my stencil right into the opening, and it fits perfectly because it's an 8-inch stencil and I use the 8-inch guide ring. Now there are different sizes of guide rings for each type of stencil, so for a smaller stencil you'll use a smaller guide ring. This stencil actually comes with this little hole right in the middle, which is perfect for making sure that your stencil is perfectly positioned at each rotation, because you can just make sure that that little circle is still over a little pencil mark that you can put in on the first time, which I just did. So now it's time to ink up my stencil and start making the pattern. This is a really cool stencil because it has lots of different little openings and little images. So it's got a little flower, which I'm now inking with some gold ink. It's got a bunch of little leaves and some dots and berries and things like that. So you can use a bunch of different colors to really make it pop and make it beautiful. So I decided to focus on some fall themed hues. I really wanted to make sort of a fall looking wreath with these beautiful florals. So I'm picking out sort of this rust color, and I'm sort of just taking a couple of the different little cutouts and adding that red color. And I'll do the same thing with the green. I'm going to use the green on a couple of the different little leafy looking cutouts as well. And you'll see that some of the cutouts are already starting off the paper, and that's fine. If you had used a bigger paper, they would have fit on. But that's okay. This paper will have some of the pattern cut off, but it'll still be beautiful. Next, I'm using this beautiful bright yellow. And again, just choosing a couple of the different sort of openings of images to stencil and ink through. And then finally, I will move over to a beautiful deep orange color, which again, I'll just pick a couple of those little openings and that will finish off the pattern. So you can see that we're getting this beautiful multicolor pattern, and there's no masking involved, so I'm not using any tape to mask off any parts of the stencil as I go. So now it's time to rotate the stencil, and then we'll ink again. And how you know where to rotate is all dictated by that top marking on that stencil. So you can see on this one, it's a little triangle cut out. And that tells me that I need to rotate the stencil to each triangle marking along the Stencils 360 base. So what I did is I just rotated it clockwise to the next triangle and then inked again. Now I'm doing that again. I rotated it to the next triangle, and now I can ink again, and I'm just using the same colors on the same openings at each rotation. Also at each rotation, I am just checking that center circle to make sure that it is still lined up over the little pencil mark I made initially, and that's just another way to check that everything is still aligned properly. So again, every time that I rotate the stencil, I just use the same colors of inks and the same openings that I've always been using them. And this helps build the pattern so that each shape consistently stays the same color as you rotate the pattern around. So I'm just repeating myself here and sort of showing this process sped up at this point, but again, it's just rotate, then ink, then rotate, then ink. And you don't have to mask and you don't have to clean in between. It's really, really nice, and it's such a good way to get a bold multicolor pattern. So once that's done, it is time to use that pattern to build the rest of my card. What I did is off camera, I cut a circular hole into that panel, and I'm just placing a piece of window acetate onto the back. That's because I'm going to turn this into a shaker card. and I wanted that beautiful, colorful pattern to be the front of the shaker. So this acetate is going onto the back, and then I'm going to place a piece of fun foam over that. And that fun foam also has a circle cut into it that's slightly bigger than the window circle. And that's because I don't want that fun foam to be seen from the front of the card. So that fun foam will be behind the front and it will be out of sight because the circle shape is a little bit bigger. Now in order to tape this fun foam onto the back of my shaker panel, I'm just using some double-sided tape and I'm going to carefully tape it all the way around the circle to make sure there's nowhere for any sequins to get through, so no little holes in that tape. So basically my method is to just stick down a piece of tape, cut it to the right size, peel back that adhesive backing, and then go to the next piece. And then just do that over and over and over until the entire circle is coated. Now I've done that on the first side here and I'm sticking it down to the back of my window shaker piece that already had the acetate on it. So now I have my card front with acetate and foam. I'm going to also put some double-sided tape on the back of the foam again, and that way I'll be able to stick this entire piece down onto the shaker window backing. And for the backing, I just picked a piece of silver paper because I wanted that really pretty silver to shine through the shaker window. So here I have that piece of silver cardstock and I've just laid out a bunch of different multicolor sequins onto it. And with those in place, I can now glue down or tape down that shaker front window piece right on top. And I just make sure to really stick down my fingers over the entire circle to make sure everything is nicely stuck and no sequins will come flying out when I shake it, although that has happened to me before, so it's okay. But once I've done that, I can then shake this little window and you can see those sequins shaking around nicely. Now to finish off this card, the sentiment that I went with was just this beautiful die cut that says love, and I cut that out of some gold glitter cardstock and I'm placing it in an offset fashion onto a piece of fun foam. So this will not only elevate it because of the fun foam, but it'll also add a nice accent with that sort of white shadow sticking out behind the words. So you'll see that, and that will kind of elevate it a little bit from that shaker window on the front of the card. So I'm just gluing those together and really sticking them down with my fingers to make sure that they're stuck together. To finish off the sentiment, I'm stamping out the words Forever Grateful in the orange Distress Oxide ink that I used for the pattern. And this Forever Grateful sentiment comes from one of the new Penguin Palace stamp sets that's part of their latest release, and that's called Heartfelt Notes, which has a lot of really beautiful, lovely sentiments on it, and this is just one of them. So I cut that Forever Grateful sentiment into a banner shape, and now it's all ready to put onto the front of my card. I'm just using some liquid glue to stick down that die cut word love right in front of the shaker window, pretty much right in the middle of the card. And I'm using my tweezers to really position it in a centered way and then sticking it down with an acrylic block so it really holds. And then I can stick down the Forever Grateful as well using some liquid glue. Again, just using my craft tweezers to make sure everything is nice and straight without my fingers getting in the way while I'm placing it. And I'm just sticking that down right beneath the word love. And I've kind of pulled the card off camera here a little bit so I can really make sure it's centered in real life. And then I'll just stick that down with my fingers to make sure that it sticks really nicely. And I'm focusing on the edges because it's easier for the cardstock to stick to other cardstock, I find, rather than acetate. So once I've done that, then the card is complete. You can see as I turn the card and shake it around that those sequins really do shake around very nicely, and they really bring out the beautiful colors that I used for that gorgeous floral wreath stencil. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye!